Afternoon, Infosec. How are we feeling? Oh, no, I can't hear. Are we feeling okay? How happy I am to be doing the lunchtime session when you're all hungry and ready to eat. As Vicky said, my name's Jenny, and I am a social engineer. The first step is admitting it, I guess. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about the human risk, but also about how things have changed. This is Infosec, so I'm not going to stand up here and not give you something new, okay? We're still coming in droves. So there we go. So let's get started then. First thing I want to do is define social engineering. And I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this, because I know you know what it is. But the thing is, I can't throw an infected USB in the air at the moment without hitting a social engineer. Everybody says they can do it. Every techie who can make a phone call is all of a sudden a social engineer. So I'm going to get back to basics and tell you exactly what I mean by social engineering, which is this. It's all about manipulation. Manipulating people with the goal of access. It's not a technical hack. I am probably, in fact, I'm almost certainly the least technical person in this stadium, in this conference hall right now. You'll be lucky if I can charge my phone or switch this thing on. I don't use tech at all. I work with the tech in between your two ears, the squishy bit inside your head. That's what I do, and that's how I do it, and I do it through manipulation. And I do it because I like to exploit those characteristics of human behavior, the things that leave your organizations vulnerable, not technically vulnerable, but vulnerable from your people. You know it, you know it's the oldest trick in the book, and it's still a trick that works. So what I'm talking about is hacking humans, people hacking. That's my handle, the people hacker. And I'm talking about advanced methodologies now. We're not talking about simple phishing or broad brush attacks. We're talking about advanced psychological methods. Things have moved on, and moved on incredibly from what you think you're up against. You know, it is not the same as it was a few years ago. And broadly, the goals are the same as any other hack to gain information. It's just that it's quicker and easier to hack the people than to hack the tech. And also because, really, it's at the heart of every hack. So, to introduce me and to talk to you about why I'm qualified to stand here and do this, let me tell you that I'm Snow White. I was a curious kid, grew up in Liverpool, bit of a misspent childhood, was always interested in breaking into buildings, businesses, zoos. Anywhere that was locked, I decided I wanted to have a look around. And as I got older, I kind of looked at the urbex movement, not to take anything except photographs and only leaving your footprints behind. You guys know urbex. But what it did was it showed me how to get in. And then later, a kind of a normal career. So actually, I was, and still am, when I put my other hat on, a corporate trainer. My real job, or the job that I kind of became known for, was procurement and supply chain, which is useful because that's a really easy way into most companies. And just to say that my procurement and supply chain clients wouldn't know that I was speaking here today or know anything about this other side of what I do, because they don't understand it and it's quite scary. So you guys, I talk security, and then I talk normal corporate training. And so I specialized in those things, and I specialized especially in negotiation. And the reason that that was useful in security was because it was all about understanding the other person's perspective, how to influence, how to persuade, how to move people along a continuum to my way of thinking. And meanwhile, I'm consulting security firms, hostage negotiators, crisis negotiators, and I'm helping them with their scripts. Because what you find is, in social engineering and in negotiation, it's all about the exact words that you use. Things like hypnotic binds, linguistic models that make it difficult for people to say no. All the things that are dangerous in a telephone attack. But what it also did was give me access to hundreds and hundreds of venues like this, because I was always speaking at conferences. And what would happen is, if I was at a conference with really rubbish refreshments, I'd break into the conference next door and steal their sandwiches. Some of the consultancies are probably here today, they always put on a really good buffet, and I'd think, I'm going to go into that conference and take their swag and their sandwiches. And I never really thought about it as being anything other than fun. I certainly didn't think that it was a unique thing, and I certainly didn't call it social engineering. My mum, for as much as she understands it, calls it breaking and entering, and I suppose you could say that, but you do pay me. Just remember when I'm telling you this, I am the good guys. And I got access to lots of buildings and lots of people. And I got to know people really, really well. And this is really the thing that I'm going to talk to you about today, is the idea that people are still at the heart of all of your tech. Your tech and your technical solutions. You know, I'm walking around outside and I say to people, I'm a social engineer, I'm on the human side. And their eyes kind of glaze over, oh yeah. And it just makes me so angry, because this is a huge gap in your defenses. This is like having a fortress, a citadel, and leaving the side door wide open for the caterers to come in. Except I'm not a caterer. I've been a caterer, but I'm not a caterer. So I specialised in all those things, and it became the perfect cover. And what you need to understand is there's a lot of social engineers out there now who are pretexting all the time. They're dressing as pest control or delivering flowers or sandwiches. I never did it. It was not plan A. I just did it as who I was. So I became a people hacker. And the reason it's so effective is because I do not look dangerous, right? I look like what I am, which is a corporate trainer. And the problem is people don't suspect me, ever. I almost never needed a covering story. I never needed anything elaborate. I used to just be able to go in and come out as I pleased, especially when I was pregnant. That was amongst the easiest hacks I ever did, because people are friendly, and you don't want to stop a nice pregnant lady. And you're looking at me now thinking, that's evil. You've no idea. Evil. Remember that. It comes back later. So, where do we go with all of this? Where's it heading? What are we doing with it? Because I can't stand up at Infosec and tell you something you already know, right? You already know about social engineers. You've already decided what level you're going to protect yourselves against. So I wanted to talk a bit more about it. And I wanted to do the evil laugh at Infosec and see if it was true that you didn't laugh. It's true. Why is this important to Infosec, guys? Why do the techies need to know about people hacking? Well, because as your tech gets better, as your protection gets better, the people side becomes more prevalent, certainly at the beginning. A lot of the jobs I've had is gaining information, intel, to give to the technical guys further down the line. The two are inextricably linked. You mustn't separate them, because you know that your people are your weakest link. You know that already. It must be so frustrating to know that and not be able to fix it, because the real truth is it's not fixable. Also, the psychology is so important, because what happens is people behave in certain fixed ways. And if you know what to say and the right techniques to use it, you can have those people up and down, conducted like an orchestra. And that's really dangerous, because you know what? Internally in companies, that's not something that happens very often. In companies, people are all over the place doing their own thing, not being what you want them to be, not behaving as securely as you'd like. But if you're manipulating someone from the outside, you can actually make people behave the way you want them to. I'm sorry, I'm not very popular at this point. So, you can manipulate, persuade, blackmail, and coerce, and it's easier than hacking your tech. You know, I'm looking at some of the stuff that's out there, and I'm thinking, I don't even know what that means. I don't even want to go near it. You look like you're hacking into everything except my head. But I don't need to worry about it because I'll hack into your head, and that means you'll just tell me what I need to know. So who are they? Well, I used to put this slide up, okay? I used to say, these are the social engineers. And it's not that this isn't still true. This is still true. You still get your obvious malicious groups. We've got cases on at the moment, which is big organised crime cases, and we've got cases on at the moment, which is disgruntled employees. It's everything from those who are motivated against your organisation and your organisation's activities, to people who don't like you. I mean, did you ever annoy anyone? Did you ever work with someone and then they left and you think, I'm glad they've left because they were poisonous, venomous? Those people might not call themselves social engineers, but the hack against the company, that level of malice, is dangerous and can be used by those of us who are career social engineers. And more people are calling themselves social engineers, more and more people on the forums, more and more people asking for the skills. So I used to put this up. Now what I'd say is this is true, but more than usual. Now you've actually got people, there's academies for this stuff, and every hack you hear about has got something at the heart of it. Even Snowden. You know, a lot of what Snowden did was social engineering from the start. Getting his own colleagues, socially engineering his own colleagues for information. I got 3 case studies in the recent weeks that our firm have come across. 3 statements that people made. The first statement was from a large internet company who you would all know very well. And I was sitting backstage at a conference waiting to go on and speak. And he said, and what are you? I said, oh, I'm a people hacker, you know, social engineering. Yeah, we've got that covered. No, you don't. The minute that you tell me you've got that covered, I know that you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable because you can't admit that there might be a problem. And that in itself is a problem. Your arrogance will be the end of you. The second statement was from a large retail outlet, again, who most of you would know quite well. And he said, oh, you mean phishing? No. Well, we do the phishing thing. We have these emails and we know you're not meant to click on the link. And by the way, 99% of people absolutely do still click on the link, right? You know this. But he said, no, we have that. And anything that goes out in an email with too many numbers in or too much data in, that's all covered. We get a warning email. Now that's vulnerable right there. Because again, what he thinks is, we have it covered, I don't need to think about it. God knows what his CISO must keep him awake at night worrying about the fact that they all think they're covered and that the tech protects them. The tech doesn't protect them. The tech in this case is giving them a false sense of security. But the worst one was that we were presenting at board level to a big company. And I can't say what they did because I'd identify them. And I gave them, they asked for the frighten them to death speech. Right? They said, come in and frighten the board to death. Show them how you can hack them. Show them that you can find out what their kids do on a Tuesday night. Which judo club do they go to? Show them that you can find out what their hobbies are, what their preferred charities are. Tell them how you'd use it. And I did. And I said I wouldn't be looking to hack anything. I'm not interested in your firewalls. I'm not going to hack a firewall. I'm going to hack you. And I can get to you. And how can I get to you? Because I know what you fear. And I know what you desire. Because you're a human being, and if you're a human being, then I'm going to get past you. And the guy said, why should I care? He says, okay, I get it. You can do all those things. You can hack all our people. But, you know, we'd be covered from insurance. I mean, what would you even steal? And the answer is, what would you prefer to keep private? Because that's what we'd steal. That's what we're interested in, that's what we're going to go for, that's what we are paid to find. And the guy didn't care. Now, I know when I go out there and I speak to CISOs, I know that this is one of the challenges that you have. Because everyone else on that board was interested and was scared to death. But that CEO didn't care because he thinks that they're covered. The human side of security will never properly be adequately covered because everyone has pressure points. And until people understand, until everyone understands that that's the case, you're vulnerable beyond anything the tech can hit you with. Because people cannot be patched and repaired after certain things have happened. That sounds really sinister. It is really sinister. Time for another evil laugh, do you think? No. Okay. So what I'm talking about here, really, are blind spots. The blind spots that companies have regarding the human element. How many stands out there focus on this? How many people, how many degrees have got anything other than a module on the human factor? You know, there's cybersecurity degrees out there, but they need to up this element. Otherwise, we are raising a generation of CISOs who think that the one is separate from the other. Not true. Not the case. You can't be a techie or a people person. You have to be a general security person if you're going to guard against this. People think that what they say to people isn't important, that those little facts and figures are not important. But every little thing matters. And we collect data and evidence, building up a case over months and months. Social engineers, real career social engineers, are patient. And we wait. We're opportunistic, but we're patient. I did a big job in Canary Wharf, and that front desk was immaculate. Big security guards, I had to sign in. People know what I do, so they watched me walk in, and I was escorted to the lift, and I was escorted to the office. I had to sign in, and photographs and everything. Their front gate was immaculate. What on earth makes you think I'd go in through the front gate? There I can see right at the side a little Costa coffee outlet and a smoking shelter next to it, and people going in that way. This isn't rocket science, but it is a different mindset. People who think about breaking in and knocking down walls don't think in the same way as people who build them. I go under, around, over, through, or better yet, I get someone to show me a quicker way in. Do you see, Infosec? Am I preaching yet? So, the systems that you have in place to stop it don't necessarily stop it. And I just want to have a quick rant about red teams, if I may. You see, one of the things I do here, and I love red teams, they're amongst my favourite people. But one of the things about red teams that I'll tell you is, it's very difficult to be great at this if you're paid a wage. Right? Because if you're relying on the man every month and you know you're getting paid, that sense of urgency, of desperation, the idea that if you don't get this hack right, you don't get paid, is gone. There's a psychological contract if you work for a company that the real hackers that an outside social engineer doesn't have. No one tells me what font I can use, right? No one tells me what day I get paid. I get paid if I'm successful. And that makes it different to those of you that are in that company and who are hacking janiting accounts who sorted out your expenses last month. I'm not saying they're not great people, not do a great job, but it's harder to do than an external company or certainly an external criminal. The incentive is different, the contract is different, it's not the same thing. So it's hard to get it right. It's hard to outthink a hacker. So, what's new then? What am I going to stand here in front of all you people, all you technical people, because I'm very aware that most people here are very technical and I'm kind of saying the tech doesn't matter. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying I don't use the tech to get in, right? But what's new? You know, I was chatting to a guy who's right now giving another talk, and he told me, he said, you know, I went to this conference, one of the other conferences, and there was a social engineer on. And he says that social engineer stood there and he told the audience about all his exploits, you know, hiding under desks and breaking into prisons and banks. And it was a really entertaining talk. But I came away thinking, I don't know anything, you know. All I know is that this guy is good at doing his job. So I was thinking, what can I give you, InfoSec, that was new? Right? What am I going to tell you that's different? And I'm kind of going out on a limb here, because what I'm going to tell you is this. Social engineering, as you know it, is dead. Right? You might as well bury it 6 feet under and stick a stake through its blackened, rotten heart. Because what people think social engineering is dead. It was a risk, it wasn't it? But the new social engineering, what replaced it is more sinister. The type of social engineering that people think they're protected against is sort of a Disney version of what the reality is. The idea of these little emails with click-throughs being the be-all and end-all, or phone calls getting people to tell them what systems you use, that will all still happen, and people will still fall for it. But what's moved on is that the social engineers realised, just like the tech, they had to get better. So instead of social engineering, instead of the people side being a bolt-on to someone who's already a technical hacker, what's happening now is there are people who, like me, are entirely people-led. It's not a bolt-on anymore. It's not a separate discipline. The people hacking side, the human element, is the point. It always was, and it always will be. And all that tech has to be designed with that in mind. No machine ever attacked you or your company. Someone behind that machine did it, and someone behind another machine tried to stop it. You mustn't think of the two things as separate, because they are not separate. If you do, it will be your downfall. It's a vicious circle. It's exactly like the tech getting better, so the defense gets better, so the hacks get better. What on earth makes you think that as the human element gets more well known, as more books get written that are and are not really about the psychological side of it, that the psychological hacks don't get more clever as well? You know, we're getting smarter. There are better ways of doing it. You know, psychology is a very young discipline, but within it, there are elements of stage illusion and hypnosis and linguistics and persuasion. You know, the science of influence is young. Rhetoric comes in. These are academic, studyable, if that's a word, disciplines. And that's what they're coming at you with, not some phone call or phishing email. That's fine, it's always going to happen, but in my mind, dead. Not as important as what you're being hit with. The psychology evolves, and so what we need to do now to get past is profile an organisation as if it was a person. I look at companies and get the idea of a gestalt entity with weaknesses and fears and motivations, just like I would look at an individual. Companies have characteristics, and their staff embody them to a certain extent and create that gestalt entity. And that helps me to profile an organisation, and in that is that organisation's nemesis. Because the characteristics of an individual is how you will get to them, and the characteristics of an organisation is how you will get to it. So, rising from the dead, see, it's a tenuous link, but it is there. Rising from the dead, the new breed of social engineers. Less interested in broad hacks, interested in very specific, tailored attacks on individual companies and individuals within it. You will attract the hack that you deserve as an organisation. This new breed are practically invited to hack organisations because the cultural profile of how your company operates will determine the way in. It depends on a few things, but one of the first things that I use when I'm looking to attack, looking to get past, is the attitude of the staff in a company. How do they feel about where they work? Are they proud of it? Is it a premium brand? Because if it is, I'll get in through flattery. Broadly, arrogance is a weakness. Are they a small company? Are they frightened? Well, then we can use fear and timing and greed and get past that way. We look at the staff and the attitude to staff, and particularly the way the leadership speaks, treats, and pays its staff. You know, most insider hacks come from people who are poorly paid and disgruntled. I look at how the leadership leads its staff, and I look at the attitude in particular to third parties. You remember I said my other hat was procurement and supply chain. I tell you this now, how a company treats its suppliers, its third parties, its vendors, will show you the heart of that company. Because how people behave in a position of power dictates their character. And I can see it and I can exploit it easier than anything else. So I look at the supply chain. I look at how they think about threats, and I look at how they think about security. Oh, we've got that covered. Well, then you're vulnerable, because you don't. The best people are the people that say, what can you tell me? I might know, I think I've studied this, I'm sure that I know it. We went to a guy's office just a few weeks ago, and his desk was covered in security books and social engineering articles. That guy had studied it, and he knew what we were going in for, and he still said, I know I must be missing something. That is the best attitude to have, because we all miss something, right? And you know what? That guy walked past a very unusual feature of his workplace. I can't say what it is because I'd reveal it. But the type of thing that every single other person in this room would stop and go, whoa. And like I said, if you can walk past something like that every day without noticing it, then you won't see the potential ways that a hacker will get in. You just won't. Yeah, because you're blind for looking, it's too familiar, you're in the weeds. And that's one of your problems with your red teams, and it's one of your problems of all security, anyone working somewhere familiar. And lastly, that attitude to security. What is the attitude? Do you think you've got it covered? Is it okay? So what? Because all of those things help us shape the hack. So an individual attack is shaped by the hacky and the hacker and the type of hack that will work. It's a three-way process, and it is unique to the business at this level. There's always going to be levels, but at this very specific psychological level, it is a tailored, unique attack. And you see, you're not dealing with nice people, you know? You're not dealing with people who particularly appreciate being ignored. You know, you mustn't ignore this risk. I have told you now, and you already knew to a certain extent what I was talking about, but I have given you information about a hole in the road that you, all of you, are potentially heading towards. You can't shake that off now. It won't be ignored. It's almost a duty of care to think about it at least, alongside all of the techie stuff that you put together, because you're looking at this customized, tailored, unique hack. There's actually a collaboration between the company that's going to be hacked and the person who's hacking them. Because, as I say, it's the culture that creates the hack that you invite, and in some companies, the hack that you deserve. So it's an evolution. Your takeaways today, InfoSec. Firstly, the first step. You must admit that there's a vulnerability. If you work with people, then you have a vulnerability, like it or not. Don't forget, it doesn't need to be you that falls for it. I don't expect everyone to fall for it all of the time, just the right person one time. You fall for it once and you're attacked. You have to link your people and your tech at every stage, and understand that your culture informs the hack at this higher level. Increase your awareness, increase it. It's a process that is easier to do than you might think. Use it in audits. Use it in inductions and in interviews. Remember this people element. It needs to be drummed into staff from the minute they work with your company. Because it's only through those limitations and recognizing them that you'll evolve. You know, bad guys are evolving quicker than we can keep up. We need to make sure that arrogance and ignorance doesn't stop us from doing so. I'm not talking really about social engineering. I'm talking about this psychological pen test. That's what we're talking about, and that's what I want you to think about going forward. So, to sum up then, I caught this chat on Twitter just a couple of weeks ago, and they were talking about, yeah, think like a hacker. Well, duh. You know. So, of course, we've got to think like a hacker. I'm going to put it to you that I can think like a CISO sometimes, and I'm not sure everyone does think like a hacker. But I thought you might be able to sound like one after today. So I'm wondering if, given what we now know, if we could manage an InfoSec group evil laugh. What do you think? Are we ready? I didn't hear you. Once more. Thank you very much. That's all from me. Cheers.